wasn't even recording that. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I just recorded about 5-10 minutes and it wasn't video recording. It was recording the audio but not the video. Anyway, don't really want to get political on this one. A lot of bullshit going on and it's just a little bit depressing and it'll just piss me off really. So I'm gonna share some stuff I've been watching lately. I just recently rediscovered a childhood favorite who has probably my first crush as a kid. And then a book that I'm reading right now. I'm almost done with. I don't really want to be done with it yet. It's the 4th book, so I'm not sure if there'll be a next one. But that book is called Tales from the Gas Station. It's by Jack Townsend. It's very meta, like horror comedy style book. I love it. There's 4 of them so far. The story revolves around this guy who writes a blog about like weird stuff that happens where he works. He's a gas station clerk and like all kinds of weird crazy shit, supernatural stuff, monsters. So definitely a recommendation. Start with 1. We'll do whatever the fuck you want, but check it out. If you want to read a shorter one, the audiobook is even on YouTube for most of them, but Bedside Manor is a good one. It's a fairly short tale and it'll give you a good sense of like what the story is. But yeah, one of my favorites. Movies. I watched this surprisingly really good movie by B.J. Novak. You might remember him as Ryan from The Office. Wasn't the biggest fan of that character. Thought he was annoying, bit of a prick. And but I was really impressed with this movie. He stars in it. He also, I believe, wrote and directed it. It's called Vengeance. Came out, I'm not sure. I'll put the title up here. But it's a great movie. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. The idea is this guy works for a company that does podcasts. Works on a podcast and he gets a call from an ex-lover's brother saying that she passed away, overdosed. And she had gave her family the implication that they were dating, very serious. So they contacted him to come to the funeral. He decides to go, and he's pretty much welcomed with open arms. I'm not going to get too much into the main story, but that's the basic premise. He starts writing about her and how life in small town. He starts writing about her and like what life is in like a small rural town in Texas, and eventually decides to investigate because his family says that she never did drugs. She was a good girl, But it's really good, so go check that out. Vengeance. This one was one of my favorites. I actually I'm sampling it right now, but it's called Delirious. Not the John Candy one, the Michael Pitt one. It's really good. About a homeless dude who ends up becoming friends with the paparazzi guy, becomes his assistant, and it's basically about that, and a lot of it has to do with generational trauma, narcissism, stuff like that. And it's mostly about like interpersonal relationships between like this guy and his friend. Really enjoyed it. Delirious with John Candy is really good too. That one is basically like a Groundhog Day-esque film. It's not quite like Trapped in a Loop, but it's a writer who he gets trapped in his own story. I was also watching The Menu. It's a new horror movie on, I believe it's Prime, could be Hulu. That one was impressive. If you like cooking shows, stuff like that, it's kind of in that honor. it's a horror movie, so a lot of good like ideas about how art can become more about obsessive perfection rather than passion, and how a lot of people who judge art or wish to be like a part of it, they can see it and understand it to some degree, but can never fully be an artist. You know what I mean? Really, really interesting ideas there as far as like what art is and what it means to people. Check it out, especially if you're an artist, chef, if you love just cooking in general. To the one I mentioned previously, High Spirits. I just recently found this on Prime. I came across it because I was watching 80s comedies, but it's like a horror comedy, really fucking good. Peter O'Toole, some people might be familiar with him. Daryl Hannah, that's one of the main characters, and Steve Guttenberg. Oh, it also has Beverly, what's her name, from Vacation. I didn't even recognize her, to be honest. I had to look up the cast, and I finally realized that she's the wife from Vacation. That's how good she is at playing a bitch. But yeah, Daryl Hannah was my first crush. Gorgeous in this movie. If you watch it and you like her, check out Splash. It's with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah. Another one of my favorite. Also John Candy. I went down like a John Candy rabbit hole. Watched all of his movies. I wish he had a bigger discography, filmography. But yeah, that's what I've been doing lately. There's something about like those 80s and 90s movies, the romantic comedies and stuff. They don't really make them like that anymore. I sound old as fuck saying that, but it's kind of true. Something about 90s movies, 80s movies that maybe I'm hesitant to say it's nostalgia because I'm not quite sure if that's what it is. Could be, but something about it, man. I would encourage you to look up your favorite 80s, 90s actors or your current favorite actors and go through their filmography and watch all their stuff, even the bad ones. One really fun one to do is Nicolas Cage. He's been in some wild movies, some good and bad ones, but another guy I've been looking into watching his movies is John Carpenter. I was watching Daryl Hannah movies and I came across this movie called Memoirs of the Invisible Man with Chevy Chase and Daryl Hannah. I didn't even know that movie existed. Very I wouldn't say very different. Kind of reminded me of Fletch in some ways, but really good Chevy Chase movie. Speaking of John Carpenter, though, but how amazing would it be if they made another Escape from Albuquerque, or Escape from Houston? No, Escape from Chicago, or what's the other one? Detroit, Escape from Detroit. That would be great. And he's still making movies. What's his name? I can't believe I forgot his name. I'm not very good with names, to be honest, so I apologize. Kurt Russell. There you go. That motherfucker. Back to the Splash one. I was looking at the cast and director. Ron Howard directed that. I thought that was hilarious. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Couple weeks late. I do want to try to do this every week, but there's so much shit going on in the world, and I don't want to be just like a political, like, podcast. Like I said, talk about things I want to talk about things I enjoy, things going on. Next week we could talk about some of the more political stuff. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about next week. But yes, I am going to keep doing the podcast. I'll get better at it. I feel like this episode is a little better as far as the pauses and all that. Until next time, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening if you're listening to this. I got some new music coming out next week on Friday. A couple new songs. I'll probably release one early, either this weekend or next week, and then I'll have the main release out on Friday. So, looking forward to that. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.